All right, let's talk some Niners here on this Monday morning. Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report. Chase Sr. here with you. Hope all of your weeks are off to a good start, albeit that bad loss for San Francisco yesterday. Doing this video from the crib because I have Monday Night Football tonight, so I'll be back in the studio here at the Chat Sports HQ offices a little bit later today to talk some Niners. Be on the lookout for that. Did a post-game reaction show last night. That's up on the channel in case you missed it. And let's further recap everything that happened last night and yesterday for the Niners, and of course, everything moving forward for San Francisco here. So you think about what went right back in week 5 when the Niners pulled off that unbelievable upset on Thursday Night Football as 8.5-point underdogs on the road against the Rams as they were so shorthanded, right? Couple of things that I had talked about in the lead up to the game that the Niners needed to accomplish in this game that they'd accomplished back in week 5 at SoFi Stadium. They played keep away. They dominated time of possession early. That did not happen in this game against the Rams in the rematch. They were able to take that big early lead, 20-7. That also did not happen on Sunday. They went down 21-0 in the blink of an eye. I mean, everything happened so quickly because the Rams got the ball to start the game, drove right down the field. Niners went 3 and out. Rams drove right down the field. Niners had the turnover. Rams drove right down the field. And before you knew it, before some fans were able to sit down at Levi's Stadium, the Rams are up by 3 scores. Also think back to week 5, the Niners won the turnover battle. Well, they lost it 2-0 to the Rams yesterday, including that fumble after moving the ball on the second drive when Jawan Jennings picked up a first down. Peanut punch, dislodged the football. Niners turn it over when they were moving it in a position to put points on the board. And not only does that hurt you on the scoreboard, right? It hurts you as far as momentum. And that turnover for JJ was killer. And all year, he's really continued to hurt this football team. You also think back to week 5, right? The Niners made timely and clutch plays. That was the case all throughout the game. Mac Jones was incredible in week 5. He was great in week 10. Kendrick Bourne, career game, didn't do much in Sunday's game. You had the Alfred Collins peanut punch. He didn't play in this game. Niners missed him. You had the 4th and 1 stop in overtime. And in this game, the defense failed to make any big play. I think the Rams scored on every drive without a kneel down except for 1 or 2. Sky Moore had, 1 punt return opportunity? Maybe 2. And so this Niners defense yesterday could not stop a nosebleed. They could not stop a parked car. And they didn't have one big play throughout the entire ball game. And so those timely and clutch plays that they made in week 5 did not happen 5 weeks later. And then obviously a huge concern for this team now and moving forward for the rest of the year. Niners could not and did not generate a pass rush. And Matthew Stafford had all day to drop back, make a sandwich, tie his shoes, survey the field, go through his progressions, and he is just on a heater right now. It's not a hyperbolic statement to say that Matthew Stafford might be having the best season of his career. And I don't know how he's not more in the MVP conversation. The guy has 25 touchdowns and 2 interceptions this year. And I talked about this in the lead up to the game. If you can't get a pass rush going against Matthew Stafford when he is throwing to Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, a whole host of tight ends who are just coming out of the woodwork, with a good offensive line and a sound running game, it's going to be a long day. And it ended up being a very long day for San Francisco. This Niners defensive line is one of the worst pass rushing units in the NFL. This Niners run defense without Mykel Williams, their best edge-setting run defender remaining on the roster, one of the worst units in the NFL. And when you combine that with the back end playing horrible, the back 7 was atrocious in this game, it's going to spell disaster. And a disastrous performance came to fruition for San Francisco. The linebacker play was really bad. How can Nick Martin not get on the field as a third-round pick? With his elite athleticism and his playmaking, is he going to miss some plays? Yes. Is he going to over-pursue? Yes. Is he going to struggle to throttle down because he's overly aggressive at times? Yes. But my goodness, he's a lot more athletic than Luke Gifford a career special teamer who the Rams targeted time and time again in coverage. He's not a coverage guy. And there's a reason why prior to this year, he was primarily used as a special teams player. Get Nick Martin on the field. If you're not going to make a move at the trade deadline because you want to hold on to all of your draft picks for the future to continue this hybrid reset, then just play your young guys. Sebastian Valdez, activated, healthy scratch. Why didn't he play in this game? You're without Alfred Collins. CJ West is up. Great. Play Sebastian Valdez as well. At the safety spot, Marquis Siegel has been a healthy scratch the last couple of games. If you want to develop your young players, you need to play your young players. You've been doing it with Alfred Collins. You were doing it with Mykel Williams before he got hurt. You were doing it with CJ West yesterday. You've lived with some rough mistakes and bad plays from Upton Stout. At this point, play all of your young players. If this season is about building for the future and holding on to your assets for the future, just play your young players. I hate when organizations are conflicted, when they're hesitant in making decisions, when they don't have a clear plan. The Niners will tell you what the plan is, but it's not a clear plan. They'll tell you that they didn't want to overpay because they want to make trades that make sense for the team. They don't want to get fleeced, and they want these players to be a part of their future, and they want to maintain their draft capital, yet they're not going to play their young players. How does that make any sense? That's not a clear direction. That's not a clear plan. And that's another frustrating thing about yesterday and this Niners season so far. I'll also say this. Robert Saleh also didn't call his best game. Now, he's like a cook who has limited ingredients, so what do you expect him to do? He's not going to make a Michelin type of meal when he doesn't have a lot of options at his disposal and a lack of ingredients, but he didn't call his best game. I mean, the Rams were using these 3 tight end sets, and they utilized them to a point where the Niners had no answers. In a goal line situation, Malik Mustafa, who has been awful in coverage all year, you're going to line him up one-on-one on an out route against Davante Adams? Come on. You'll take Davante Adams in that matchup 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. Niners couldn't get off the field on third downs. And this Niners defense so clearly shorthanded. This is why I wanted the Niners to make a trade or trades after the Mykel Williams injury. It made too much sense. And I've tweeted about this. I've talked about it on the show, whether it be long form like this or a YouTube short. But to the crowd of people saying, come on, Chase, one trade acquisition would have made a difference in Sunday's game. Well, if you're going to play that game, let me play the game back, right? What if that trade acquisition sacked Matthew Stafford on a big play early in the game to keep a touchdown off the board? What if that trade acquisition sacked Matthew Stafford to force the Rams to punt instead of scoring a touchdown? What if this marquee trade acquisition made a big play and the deficit to come back from was 14-0 instead of 21-0? I'm not asking for it to be Lawrence Taylor, but how about a better player and another body? Because the Niners have nothing up front right now. And the defensive line is tied to the back seven, which played awful yesterday. What if that player who the Niners acquired made a big stop on a third down against the run to force a punt? Or made a game-altering, momentum-changing play, or helped generate a turnover with a strip sack, or that trade acquisition got pressure on Matthew Stafford, which forced an interception. The Niners played horrible on defense, and they were still able to cut it to a one-score game. What if they just had another body or two? They need dudes at this point. Now, as far as the good news here, I put that in the title. Right now, the Niners are out of the playoff hunt, entering Monday Night Football, big game between the Eagles and the Packers, right? But the good news for Niner fans, there's an opportunity here for San Francisco to right the ship and get into the dance. Remember back in 2021, They started 3-5, made it to the NFC Championship game. They won 10 games that year. Remember 2022, they started 4-4, and they made the NFC Championship game. Another thing, too, that I'm thinking about, when you make a trade for a player, it gives their roster belief that the front office believes in them. It helps the morale of the team. It helps their confidence. And that can really light the fire for that individual player. But for the rest of the team to elevate their game and catch fire and play with swagger and confidence the rest of the year. Think about 2022. The Niners were a pretty mid team to start the year, right? They traded for Christian McCaffrey. They lost that first game against Kansas City in October. They did not lose again until the NFC Championship game. In 2021, they made it to the NFC title with Jimmy Garoppolo. In 2022, they made it to the NFC title, a game away from the Super Bowl, with their third-string quarterback, who was the final pick in the NFL draft. That's why I also would have liked to have seen San Francisco make a move to improve your team, but to improve morale. Because human nature also has to be factored in here. But as far as that good news for the Niners, opportunity to right the ship and get into the dance. They are 6-4. Right now, if the season were to end, they'd be out of the playoffs. But they will be favored in the next 4 games. At Arizona, home against Carolina on Monday Night Football, at Cleveland, home against Tennessee. There is a scenario where the Niners can win all of those games. If they do, 10-4, bye week coming up, week 14, they'd be 10-4, 14 games in, with 3 games left to play. Now, I will say this. I think that schedule is a little harder than what meets the eye. Arizona just got whooped against Seattle. But last week, they did go on the road, and they beat the brakes off the Dallas Cowboys. They've been feisty all year. They nearly beat the Niners back in week 3, and I think Jacoby Brissett makes that team better. Carolina lost to New Orleans yesterday. They went on the road 2 weeks ago. They beat Green Bay. And Carolina has been a very competitive team this year. That's going to be a hard game. Kyle Shanahan in his career, when the Niners go on the road against Cleveland, is like 0-8 against Jim Schwartz. That defense is phenomenal. The Browns' offense stinks, but playing in Cleveland, bad weather, against a defensive coordinator who you've struggled against your entire career, it's going to be a hard game. And against Tennessee, you lose that. That's a disaster. So an opportunity to be 10-4 and go 4-0 over the next 4 games. But I don't think the Niners sweep that. But if you're trying to hold out hope that the Niners can make the playoffs, that's the good news there, is that the schedule is easy. Now, it's not a great litmus test for the playoffs, because anytime the Niners have played a high-level quality opponent this year or a playoff contending team, they've struggled. Or in the case of the Week 5 game against the Rams, they had to pull that game out of their ass. But you stack up wins, you get into the dance, and I've said anything can happen. Going back to the Niners making a move, this is also why I would have made a move, right? You split with the Rams. That's fine, right? You were not favored to win that game yesterday. But if you make a move or moves with this easy schedule coming up, that could be the difference in helping you win these games, because you're so clearly a body or 2 short. But you make moves, the morale and the confidence of the team is better. But then it just helps you on defense against an easier schedule coming up over the next month. You also look ahead, Niners-Bears, December 28th. That could literally determine the 7th and final seed in the NFC. That's going to be an early playoff game at the end of December that is going to be massive. With what the Bears have been doing of late, they've been winning some crazy games, and with where the Niners are with their record. Because I think the Bears now have 6 wins too. Now, what's going to happen the rest of the year? Offense is going to have to carry this football team. They have been playing better of late. Against the Giants, impressive performance. Against the Rams, they moved the ball. You get Ayuk back, maybe, although I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play the rest of the year. You get Pearsall back. That can help you. You get more continuity at left guard. That's something that George Kittle had talked about. And this offense can carry the load, put the team on its shoulders, and that gives the defense more breathing room, a lesser margin for error. And the defense, you hope, with all these young players, hopefully they play more of them, can get a little bit better against inferior competition over the next month. That could be a formula. But this offense does have to play better. They can't commit penalties. They can't lose the turnover battle. They have to capitalize in the red zone. I don't love how Kyle Shanahan with McCaffrey yesterday went back to the outside zone. You got to get north-south with this running game. Against Atlanta, against New York, you had success running power and gap scheme. You've done it with Brian Robinson. Get back to doing it with Christian McCaffrey. And speaking of the quarterback, let's round out there. If Brock Purdy is compromised because of his turf toe the rest of the year, I think the 49ers should just keep starting Mac Jones. He's playing too well to take him off the field for an injured quarterback and an injured player, because the injured player makes you worse as an offense. And knowing that the offense needs to carry the team, why would you put out a lesser quarterback who would be worse than Mac Jones because of the turf toe injury? Now, if he's 100%, obviously Purdy makes you better, and he's a better player than Mac Jones. But Mac Jones is playing great football right now. Not the reason they lost that game. What was he? 33 of 39 yesterday or whatever? He was sensational. So efficient. Made some great throws. He was let down at times with drops, with the Jawan Jennings turnover. So we'll see what happens at the quarterback spot for the Niners. Kyle Shanahan said there was a chance he could have been active yesterday as the backup, but he didn't want to put Purdy in that position. There was also a chance that he could play against Arizona. But this turf toe thing could linger for the rest of the year, and that makes Purdy less mobile, which takes away from his skill set. Mike Garafolo did report this on Purdy. He's getting closer. I know you've heard that repeatedly. We have. We've literally been hearing this for the last 2 months. But that's the nature of the turf toe injury. Garafolo said they're looking at the potential for him to return in Week 11, but for now, it is Mac Jones once again for the Niners. The way that the Niners have handled Purdy is that they want to make sure he doesn't suffer another setback here. He's their franchise quarterback. They've made it clear. As well as Mac Jones has played when Purdy is healthy, he's back under center as their quarterback. Already had one setback. They don't want another one, so that's why they've taken a slow approach on this one. We'll see about Purdy coming up. He still has to make a little bit of progress, but the hope is that he's back in the near future next week. But the hope is that he's back soon for the last 2 months. He's been day-to-day for the last 2 months. Not even a joke. But if he's still hurt, one, don't risk him re-injuring his toe. Show some discipline here, which the Niners always haven't been able to do as far as their injuries. And number two, don't play the lesser quarterback who's injured. Play Mac Jones because he's playing great, and the guy is a legitimate starter in this league. All right, I'll be back a little bit later in the studio on the San Francisco 49ers Report. I appreciate everybody for hanging out here. I'll see you in a bit. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll talk some Niners here in a few hours.